Welcome to the 21st Century Man podcast.
Great to be diving in again.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're tackling a really critical topic for men's health. We're exploring chapter 18 of the book, The 21st Century Man.
And this chapter is titled Avoiding Diabetes. It brings in nutritionist Jerry Stein and medical writers Armin Brott and Nancy Fass.
Right. And it really zeroes in on a significant challenge, something many men face.
It really does. What jumps out immediately, I think, is how it highlights this disparity in health outcomes.
Disparity, how so?
Well, the fact that men often get diagnosed with diabetes much later than women. We're talking, on average, maybe 15 years later.
15 years. Wow, that's a huge gap.
It is. And when you think about what diabetes can lead to, the book really lays it out. Heart disease, strokes, blindness, even amputations.
Yeah, all the serious complications.
Exactly. So that delay in diagnosis, it can mean, well, potentially irreversible damage. It's quite sobering.
Absolutely. And that's really why we wanted to do this deep dive. Our goal today, very much in the spirit of the whole 21st Century Man book, is to, equip you listening.
Right. Give you the tools.
Yeah. The knowledge to understand your own risk, maybe spot potential issues early, those subtle signs, and feel empowered to take real steps towards prevention.
So we'll be breaking down the different types of diabetes the chapter talks about.
Yeah. Looking at the specific risk factors for each, the symptoms to watch out for.
And importantly, some practical strategies, things you can actually start thinking about, maybe even doing right away.
What I really appreciate about this chapter and the book overall is how direct it is. It doesn't sugarcoat the issue, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But it presents this complex health information in a way that's, well, accessible. It feels genuinely empowering, not just scary.
I totally agree. It really makes you feel like you can take some control over your health trajectory.
Okay, so let's get into it. The chapter starts by addressing something pretty fundamental, doesn't it? This sort of traditional male mindset towards health.
Yeah, that rugged individualism idea.
Exactly. It points out this tendency, and look, it's a generalization, but often true for men to maybe put off going to the doctor.
Or skip the follow-up appointments.
Right. Or maybe not be great about sticking with medication if it's prescribed.
And the book connects this attitude, this sort of toughness ideal, to potentially dangerous delays in getting diagnosed and treated for things like diabetes.
Which is such a key point, because that reluctance, that hesitation to really engage with healthcare.
It can have huge consequences, especially with something like diabetes that can just creep up on you silently for years.
And the stats the chapter pulls in, they really drive this home. They use data from the CDC, right? The Centers for Disease Control.
Yep, top public health agency. And the numbers are, frankly, startling. Over 34 million adults in the U.S. have diabetes.
34 million.
And maybe the most shocking part, about 1 in 5 of them, so almost 7 million people, don't even know they have it.
That's incredible. And then there's prediabetes.
Yeah. The situation there is even more widespread. The book says over 88 million U.S. adults, that's more than a third of all adults, have prediabetes.
Prediabetes meaning blood sugar is high, but not quite diabetic level yet.
Exactly. It's that initial stage of insulin resistance creeping in. But here's the kicker. Over 84% of those 88 million people have no idea. They are completely unaware.
Wow. So we're talking about a massive, mostly hidden health crisis.
Pretty much. And it's not static. The chapter notes the number of diagnosed adults has more than doubled in just the last 20 years.
Doubled? Why such a jump?
Well, it's linked to a couple of big trends. Our population is aging, and crucially, rates of overweight and obesity have climbed significantly.
Makes sense. And there's an economic hit too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Medical costs for someone with diabetes are roughly twice as high as for someone without. It just underlines why catching it early, which is the whole point of this chapter's information, is so incredibly important.
Okay, so early detection is key. Let's talk about the different types, the chapter details. What do we need to know about type 1?
Right, type 1. Important to know this accounts for a smaller slice of the pie, maybe 5 to 10% of all diabetes cases.
Okay.
It often shows up earlier in life, like in childhood or the teen years, and there's often a genetic link. About 40% of cases have some hereditary factor.
And what's actually happening in the body with type 1?
Essentially, it's an autoimmune issue. The body's own immune system mistakenly attacks and wipes out the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas.
So the body just stops making insulin or makes very little.
Precisely. And since insulin is what lets sugar, glucose, get from your blood into your cells for energy, without it, blood sugar just skyrockets.
Which is why people with type 1 need insulin injections.
Daily injections, or they might use an insulin pump. It's essential for survival.
And the symptoms, they come on fast.
Usually, yeah. Days or weeks, typically.
Mhm.
And they're pretty dramatic. Sudden, extreme tiredness, losing a lot of weight without trying, blurry vision.
Frequent urination, too, right? Especially at night.
Yep, that too. And feeling really thirsty, dry mouth, classic signs. The book stresses, obviously you need a doctor for type 1, but it also mentions diet is still really important for managing blood sugar and trying to avoid other issues down the line, like insulin resistance.
Okay. Then the chapter moves to prediabetes, which you said affects that huge number, 88 million people.
That's right. This is really that first stage where insulin resistance starts. Your cells just aren't responding to insulin as well as they should, so they're not great at pulling glucose out of the blood.
So blood sugar is higher than normal, but not yet in the diabetic range.
Correct. But the big worry is that a large chunk of people with prediabetes will eventually progress to full-blown type 2 diabetes if things don't change.
And you mentioned it's sneaky, the symptoms.
Often barely noticeable, especially at first. It develops slowly. The book actually says someone could have undiagnosed type 2 diabetes for maybe 5 years or more before it's finally caught.
5 years. That really highlights the need for testing, even if you feel fine.
Absolutely. And the good news here is that prediabetes can often be prevented from progressing or even reversed.
How? What are the main strategies?
The basics are pretty clear.
Sure.
A healthy diet focused on improving insulin sensitivity and managing weight, regular exercise, and keeping things like high blood pressure in check.
Interestingly, the chapter points out prediabetes isn't just about high blood sugar or low insulin. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, it's a nuanced point. Testing often looks for markers of insulin resistance. Your pancreas might actually be pumping out lots of insulin, especially early on, but your cells just aren't listening effectively.
Ah, so the insulin is there, but it's not doing its job properly.
Exactly. And blood sugar can swing around too. Some people might even have periods of normal or low blood sugar, which is called hypoglycemia.
So what's the key test then for spotting this early resistance?
The book really flags the hemoglobin A1C blood test as crucial.
A1C. Okay.
Yeah, it gives you an average picture of your blood sugar over the last 2 or 3 months. It measures how much sugar is attached to your red blood cells. It's much better than just a single fasting glucose reading for seeing emerging insulin resistance.
Got it. Very useful test. Okay, then we get to type 2 diabetes. This is the most common one.
By far. It affects around 34 million people in the U.S., making up 90–95% of all diabetes cases. And this is fundamentally about that insulin resistance we just talked about.
So the body makes insulin, at least initially, but the cells don't respond well.
That's the core issue. Glucose struggles to get into the cells for energy. It's traditionally been more common in overweight folks over 40.
But the book says it's showing up in younger people now, too.
Sadly, yes, even kids and teens. Largely blamed on, diets high in processed foods and sugar, plus more sedentary lifestyles, less moving around.
What are the main risk factors the chapter lists for type 2?
Several key ones. Family history is big. If your parents or siblings have it, your risk goes up.
Yay.
Ethnicity plays a role too. Higher risk for African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Native Americans.
Age is also a factor, right? Over 45.
Yep. Being overweight or obese, especially carrying extra weight around your belly, that abdominal fat, also having high blood pressure or high cholesterol.
And lifestyle, like exercise.
Definitely. Being sedentary, defined in the chapter as exercising less than, say, 3 times a week, is a significant risk factor.
As type 2 progresses, do the symptoms become more obvious than in prediabetes?
They can, yes. Things like major thirst, feeling hungry a lot, maybe even binge eating, difficulty losing weight despite trying.
What about other signs?
Yeah, things like erectile dysfunction can be linked. Changes in skin color, sometimes dark patches in the neck, armpits, groin area.
Tingling or numbness, too.
Right, in the hands or feet, that's peripheral neuropathy, nerve damage starting. Also, more frequent urinary tract infections or cuts and sores healing really slowly.
The chapter says there's no cure, but it can be managed.
Absolutely. Lifestyle changes, medication, monitoring, it's very treatable. But again, the scary part is the number of people, over 5 million, who have type 2 and don't know it.
And if it goes untreated, the complications.
It's serious. Increased risk of blindness, kidney disease potentially leading to dialysis, nerve damage, and a much higher chance of heart attack and stroke. It's not something to ignore.
The chapter also briefly mentions type 3 diabetes. What's that about?
Yeah, sometimes called brain diabetes. It
Mm.
refers to this link researchers are finding between insulin resistance specifically in the brain and conditions like Alzheimer's disease.
So metabolic health impacting brain health.
Exactly. It's a newer area of understanding,
Yeah.
but it highlights how important overall metabolic balance is, even for cognitive function. The book cites one study finding nearly a third of Alzheimer's patients also had this type 3 profile.
Interesting. And what about low blood sugar, hypoglycemia?
The chapter touches on that too. While it can happen to people with diabetes on certain meds, the book suggests millions of undiagnosed people might experience symptoms of unstable blood sugar.
Like what kind of symptoms?
Maybe feeling that energy dip, feeling mentally foggy, and then feeling noticeably better or clearer after eating something sugary.
But wait, doesn't the book also say fatigue after eating can be a sign of insulin resistance?
Good catch, yes.
Yeah.
It's a bit counterintuitive. With insulin resistance, your body struggles to store the sugar effectively after you eat, which can lead to fatigue rather than the energy boost you'd expect. So unmanaged blood sugar swings, whether high or low, can mess with energy, mood, cause irritability.
Okay, that makes sense. Finally, under types, there's autoimmune diabetes.
Right. Estimated to be about 25% of diabetes in younger Americans. It's where the immune system attacks the pancreas cells, similar to type 1, but sometimes the onset is slower.
And it can happen in people who aren't overweight.
Yes, there's a form seen in thinner individuals. The chapter notes it requires careful diagnosis, likely by a provider who really understands autoimmune conditions.
Okay, that's a good overview of the types. So, how can someone listening get a handle on their own risk for prediabetes? The chapter gives some practical tools, right?
It does. Really useful self-assessment stuff. A key starting point is just monitoring your weight. Gaining weight or finding it really hard to lose weight.
That can be a sign of insulin resistance.
It's often a major indicator, yeah. Especially if the diet tends to be high in, simple carbs and sugars. And the book reminds us being overweight isn't just about looks. It seriously increases risk for many major illnesses.
So, tracking weight is a simple first check. What else?
Waist measurement.
Yeah.
Super simple, very informative. For most men, getting over 40 inches around the waist is considered a high-risk sign for metabolic issues.
40 inches. Okay. And the waist to hip ratio.
Yeah, another useful one. If your waist measurement is the same as or bigger than your hip measurement, so a ratio of 1 or higher.
That indicates more belly fat.
Exactly. That visceral fat deep inside the abdomen, which is particularly linked to health risks like insulin resistance and heart disease.
The book also mentions BMI, body mass index.
It does. Calculated from height and weight. While BMI has limitations, the chapter points out that a very high BMI, like in the 40-45 range, is tragically linked to losing maybe 8 to 10 years of life expectancy.
Wow. Okay. Then there's the self-assessment checklist.
Right. Really handy. It splits symptoms into two groups. A, for prediabetes signs related to insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and B, for hypoglycemia signs, low blood sugar.
And you score yourself based on frequency or severity.
Yeah, 0 to 3, where 3 is most severe or frequent. The advice is to kind of ignore the zeros and ones, but pay close attention if you're getting multiple 3s.
Okay, so what are some of those A-list prediabetes symptoms?
Symptoms like craving sweets during the day, eating sweets but still craving them, feeling like you must have dessert after meals.
Fatigue after eating.
Yep. Increased thirst, increased appetite, urinating frequently, waist girth equal to or larger than hips, and finding it hard to lose weight. Those are key signs of potential insulin resistance.
And the B list, the hypoglycemia symptoms.
That includes things like needing coffee to get going or keep going, feeling lightheaded or irritable if you skip a meal.
Getting shaky, jittery, easily upset when blood sugar feels low.
Exactly. Maybe even having a big mood crash, like intense anger or tearfulness if you go too long without eating. Also, craving sweets, feeling fatigue relieved by eating, and getting that quick energy boost from sugar, followed by a plunge.
So if these self-checks the waist size, the checklist raised some red flags, what's the next step?
The book is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to a healthcare provider. If those measurements or symptoms seem concerning, don't just sit on it. The most important step is making that appointment.
Because type 2 can be subtle, right? Often picked up in routine checkups.
Exactly. And prediabetes. Often no visible symptoms at all. Being overweight might be a clue, but blood tests, checking blood sugar, and especially that hemoglobin A1C, are really essential for a clear diagnosis.
Who should you see? Does it matter?
For suspected prediabetes, the book suggests your primary care doc, a nurse practitioner, an osteopathic doctor, DO, or maybe a naturopathic physician, ND, they generally have training in diabetes management and nutrition.
And they can refer you if needed.
Right. But if you already know you have diabetes, the advice is usually to see an internist, or even better, an endocrinologist for more specialized, detailed management. It's too risky to try and manage diagnosed diabetes alone.
Now, the chapter talks about direct-to-consumer lab testing. That's becoming more common.
It is. Things like Life Extension Foundation offer ways to order tests yourself online, get blood drawn locally, maybe without needing a doctor's order first.
But the book isn't saying treat yourself, right?
Absolutely not. It's framed as empowering you to know your numbers, to understand your own health status so you can take necessary steps, ideally with a professional.
So even if you order the test yourself,
You still really need medical expertise to understand what the results mean and what to do next. It's crucial.
and the A1C test is mentioned again here as key.
Yes, it's called the gold standard for looking back over the last few months. The book gives rough costs, like maybe $130 for an A1C with other pre-diabetes markers, maybe just $10 for a basic fasting sugar test.
The point being that getting diagnosed earlier, maybe years earlier than you otherwise would.
Can prevent a world of trouble down the road. That A1C gives such a reliable picture.
But the bottom line is still, you need professional guidance.
Definitely. You can't really do this entirely alone. And the chapter makes another important point. Your insulin levels might look normal on a test, even if you are insulin resistant.
How's that?
While studies show about 80% of people with insulin resistance actually have normal insulin levels. Remember, type 2 often isn't about not enough insulin initially. It's about the insulin not working effectively.
So it's complex. You need someone who understands these nuances.
Precisely. These conditions really require expert care.
Okay, so what can someone listening do for themselves? Starting now, the chapter gives a practical list.
Yeah, really actionable checklist. First, consider getting that hemoglobin A1C blood test.
If you don't have a regular doctor, find one and make that appointment.
Right, start thinking about an exercise plan. The book has a whole section, part 5, on that.
And begin that shift towards healthier, food-fresh, whole foods. Again, part 4 of the book covers nutrition.
The chapter also mentions considering, maybe discussing with your provider, specific supplement formulas designed for insulin resistance. It names a couple of examples like glucose support formula or glycine.
Keep a journal, maybe. Track weight and symptoms.
Great idea, yeah. The book suggests that, and it gives a time frame. If you make these changes and see no improvement in, say, 2 months, definitely follow up with a healthcare professional.
There's also that encouraging short list point.
Oh yeah, love that one. Losing even a small amount of weight, just a few pounds, can make a surprisingly big difference with prediabetes and insulin sensitivity.
And it makes you feel better, too, usually.
Totally. The chapter also touches on the behavioral side. If weight's an issue, maybe think about your social circle. Finding support from people with similar goals, maybe limiting exposure to tempting situations.
Like avoiding the regular crowd at the bar or the ice cream shop, if that's a trigger.
Right. Research actually shows your risk of obesity increases if your close friends, siblings, or spouse are obese. Environment matters.
Interesting. It also mentions dairy.
Briefly, yeah. Suggests that if your A1C or glucose is high, maybe try reducing dairy. There's a potential link where phosphorus compounds in milk might interfere with chromium digestion, and chromium is important for insulin response.
And it reinforces the idea of those targeted supplements.
Yeah, pharmaceutical-grade ones with specific minerals, amino acids, plant extracts, shown to potentially help insulin sensitivity.
And health journaling gets another plug.
Because it's so helpful. It streamlines your medical history, gives your doctor valuable data. Even a simple notebook works. Track symptoms, track progress. Providers really appreciate it.
The chapter includes a perspective from an ophthalmologist, too, Dr. Mahuchi.
Yes, a great addition. He basically pleads with patients to track their blood sugar to save their eyesight. His message is strong. You can't improve what you don't measure.
So measure what? Blood sugar control.
Sugar intake, really know how much you're eating, especially refined sugars, which are hidden everywhere.
And exercise. Track that, too.
Right. He stresses knowing your A1C number, calling it the drug test of sugar for that 3-month average. Says people often underestimate their A1C, and just knowing the number often motivates them to improve it.
He also pushes using apps to track food.
Yeah, things like MyFitnessPal or Lose It to uncover those hidden sugars. And for exercise, he encourages going beyond just basic walking, building muscle to fight diabetes, and keeping routines fresh.
And speaking of apps, the chapter recommends some specifically for prediabetes.
Yes, particularly apps that help track carbs, since managing carbs is often key for weight and blood sugar control in this context. Mentions Carb Manager, MyFitnessPal again, Atkins Carbon Meal Tracker as useful tools.
And finally, it points people towards the American Diabetes Association website.
Definitely. Diabetes.org, a fantastic resource for more in-depth information.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into Chapter 18 of The 21st Century Man, it really hammers home how crucial proactive health is for men, doesn't it? Especially around understanding and ideally avoiding diabetes.
It absolutely does. The chapter gives you so much vital information, but also those concrete, actionable steps you can actually take. It can make a genuine difference in your long-term health.
We really can't recommend enough picking up a copy of The 21st Century Man and reading Chapter 18 for yourself. Get the full picture.
Agreed. The authors Stein, Brott, Vass, they've done a stellar job making this complex stuff really understandable and, like we said, empowering. It's a resource worth having.
Absolutely. We hope this discussion gave you some valuable takeaways and maybe some motivation to take those first steps if needed.
Hope so, too.
Please join us next time on the 21st Century Man podcast. We'll be diving into Chapter 19, Infectious Conditions in Men.
Looking forward to it. Another important area to cover.
Definitely. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.